Today I'm going to talk to you about buying a house with cash versus buying with financing. And I'm going to get started right now. Hey everyone, my name's Jamey Prezzi. I'm a real estate agent in Miami and Miami Beach. And today I'm going to talk to you about a good question that I get all the time. And the question is, what's really the difference between buying a house with cash versus getting a mortgage? And what are some pros and cons or benefits of either one? And if I have enough cash to purchase a house, why I may want to consider that instead of getting a mortgage. But first, before I get started with that, I just want to tell you, if this is your first time here, hit the subscribe button so you never miss another update. I do put out new videos every single week. Also, I have provided for you in the information box a free relocation guide. So make sure that you click on that link and download that today. I'll also add you to our weekly newsletter so you never miss another update. Okay, let's get started. So I would like to just go over a few details of what you need to know if you are considering of whether purchasing with cash or with financing in our area. The first thing is you really have to determine how you are taking ownership of that property. If you are getting financing and you are buying a primary residence, a second home, or an investment property, how you are taking ownership in that property will really determine the type of financing that you can get. You need to make sure that you have a conversation with your lender about that, and I can go over that with you at the buyer consultation so you know what to expect. If you are buying in a building, a condominium building, and you need financing, you need to make sure that the building is in good shape and can get underwritten. Now, there's no way to know 100% sure until the lender sends over the condo questionnaire and asks all of those questions from the underwriter with that condo questionnaire. But unfortunately, some buildings here are ineligible for traditional financing because the building just does not meet the qualifications of traditional lenders. Some things that can make the situation a little bit tricky for financing are issues like too many renters in the building, if the building allows short-term rentals, if there's any litigation going on in a building. Now, people say to me, of course I don't want to buy in a building that has litigation. Well, it depends on what kind of litigation. If you are in a building that has some commercial space and then also 400 or 500 units, there could be some kind of litigation going on inside that building just because there's so many owners within that building. So there's just a lot of little details that you need to know in order to purchase with financing in a condominium building, and it's something that we go and take a deep dive into during a buyer consultation if you want to buy in a condominium building with financing. Quick pause, friends. I do realize that I started off the topic talking about whether you should buy a house with cash or financing. But the reality is a lot of our buyers do sometimes choose between purchasing condominiums or houses. So I decided to go ahead and just leave the condominium information because I thought it would be a little extra helpful. Another thing to know is if you're purchasing a property with cash, your closing costs are usually going to be a lot less than if you're buying with financing. A general rule of thumb that we use for cash purchases, the closing costs are around 1% of the purchase price. If you are purchasing with financing, you're probably going to be looking at around 3 to 5%, just depending on sort of the loan product, and also some of the prepaids like taxes, insurance, and anything that the lender will want to escrow for, and then obviously the cost of that loan. So if you do have cash on hand, you can save a little bit of money by not having those lender incurred charges. Sometimes people will say to me, I'm just going to offer cash because that's more appealing to the seller. And I will tell you this, it really just depends on the nature of the offer. Based on my experience, if a seller has two offers in hand and one is cash and one is financing, obviously cash is king and people love cash offers. But if it's way lower or doesn't make sense based on the financing and you're just dealing with the financing piece on this offer but everything else is better, sometimes they will go ahead and take the financing offer and just not do the cash. So it really depends on the seller, how that offer is presented to the seller, and the terms of the offer, and that will really weigh sort of the seller's decision. It's not always cash is king, even though cash is king. It really just depends on the nature of that offer. One great thing with cash is typically the closings can be a lot faster. Usually we can close a cash transaction within about 15 days here versus financing where it usually takes 30 to 45 days. One of the wonderful things with financing right now is interest rates are super low. So we have a lot of buyers who are able to pay in cash, but they just want to take advantage of those lower interest rates and use that cheaper money to purchase a property right now with financing. If you do choose to make an offer with financing, one of the most important things I can tell you to do is to really make sure that you're using a lender who is accessible. I know when I am on the seller's side and I take a pre-approval letter and I call the lender and try and reach them just to make sure that it's a valid letter, if I can't reach that lender and it's very hard to get in touch with them, it doesn't set a very good impression. Make sure whoever you're using for financing that you're choosing someone who can be reached to answer questions, to make everyone feel good, to make sure that they understand what type of loan you're getting, and to make sure that they understand the type of product that you're buying on the other side. If you have questions about buying real estate in Miami or Miami Beach and you are trying to decide whether to pay with cash or get financing, let's have a chat. I'll be happy to walk you through the process and explain the best way to get your offer accepted, and I can guide you through that process during a buyer consultation. Okay, if you have more questions, let me know. We're always here, and I will see you soon.